Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the Critical Twits Gaming Podcast, where today we take a look at tabletop role-playing games and how to create compelling characters. Hello, we are the Critical Twits. More specifically, I'm Brian Ennis.
I'm Aaron Vinsky.
And I'm Joe Lewin.
And today we're going to start a brand new regular series where we look at the basics of tabletop role-playing games. And we're going to start with how to create a compelling player character for your tabletop roleplay.
Yes.
We did have a look at, sort of in a more general sense, tabletop role-playing, what it is and how it works in an earlier episode.
Yes.
Which was episode what, Aaron? Because I forgot to write it down.
12.
I was going to say 12.
Oh fuck! Let's look. If it's episode 12, then we'll
I deserve
get some cheering
yeah.
in. Yeah. Do you know what? You're one out.
Oh,
That's amazing. Well done. Yes, we talked about tabletop roleplay in more general detail in episode 13, but as we've sort of grown and developed, people have mentioned tabletop role-playing to us. It's quite a tricky thing to get into sometimes, especially if you're starting from sort of scratch.
Yeah, definitely, because it's not as hand-holdy as other geek aspects, I suppose.
It's not like sitting down to play a board game where there's a codified set of rules, you follow the book and it kind of works. It's much freer.
Yeah, you could follow the rules of the book for character creation and have a poo character.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing as well is you don't sit down to play a role-playing game with a group of friends and have a bunch of friends that want to play the game differently.
Yeah.
It's like going, oh, well, when I play Monopoly, I like to
burn down the houses.
Roll 3 dice and one of them lives in my bum. No?
Frighteningly, I could imagine that happening. Just at the end game, it's like, right, I need the extra one that's firing out across the board.
Just taking Monopoly as an example, do you guys do the thing where the tax money in the middle is yours if you land on free parking?
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, that's not a real rule of Monopoly.
No, because it makes the game drag on for fucking ever.
Yes, but it's loads of people do it.
Yeah.
But if you imagine that as a great example,
Yeah.
a house rule,
Yeah.
and then having your entire experience, so quite how you roll the dice, whether or not you can buy things on the first go round, all these kind of weird things. If you imagine taking that and applying it to how you play the game, so the basic rules almost, or the objective, we're playing Monopoly, but the idea is to have 2 houses on everything you own, not to have the most money. Go.
Yeah.
It becomes very interesting to get an entire group of people, and we've spent years doing this, getting a group of people that want to play the game the same way you do.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be one of the things that we will come back to is communication, is talking to your DM, or your games master, your dungeon master, your keeper, your storyteller, whoever it is that's running the game.
Your own personal Jesus?
I'm not going to sing because you guys look at me with fear in your eyes whenever I sing on the podcast.
It doesn't get my emotions. It's hatred, Brian. Hatred. That look.
Well, I may have been kidding myself.
She's in thinking. Thinking seems to be angry. Fear seems actually hatred. It's.
Maybe you're
Do
scared.
I do emotions wrong?
Yeah, I think so. Good way to read Aaron. Aaron's just confused all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
What's going on?
Why was I born?
Yeah.
Your mummy and
For those who aren't too sure about tabletop role-playing games, go back and listen to episode 13, have a through. We're going to sort of expand on some of those ideas. Mostly, we're starting with characters, because it's kind of your entry point into the game
Yeah.
as a player.
Well, if you're that's it. If you're new, you're probably not going to be playing the role of the DM straight away. So this is where you would start.
Yeah, I think our next one will go through sort of some basics for DMs, how to sort of run a session and that kind of thing. But generally, unless you're starting a whole group fresh...
Yeah.
Generally, roleplay is kind of one of those things where the experienced initiate the younglings and sort of draw them in.
Like a cult.
Yes, it is. On that thing,
If you would like to join our cult.
yes. No, I was going to find a thing. Do you guys? I mean, it's a little bit kind of before our time, so I'm not sure how much of it you're aware of.
Oh, I think I know what you're coming up.
Have you seen like the satanic panic surrounding Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games and
Yeah.
such like? There's a really good article on Dirge magazine going through one of the guys who did a lot of the comic book forms of it.
Yeah.
And I can't remember his name, which is why I'm now mumbling.
And
Is this kind of...
you.
Is this within the same vein that I've seen some of it, I believe, in the kind of like you can't watch Harry Potter because it uses magic and
yes,
very much the Christians don't like fun.
Yes,
Well, you're summoning things, and you're
Yes.
coming across demons, and you can even play them.
Yeah. An article on Dirge by Matt O'Connell about Jack Chick,
Oh yeah.
who was in the 80s writing a lot about those kinds of things, and it's full of great little things like Debbie, your cleric has been raised to the 8th level. I think it's time that you learn how to really cast spells. You mean you're going to teach me how to have real power? Yes, you have the personality for it now. And then this kid ends up becoming a priestess in the Temple of Diana and falling morally and all this sort of stuff.
Awesome.
It's quite mad.
Yeah.
It's well worth having a look at. It's I mean, from a modern perspective, it's funny as hell, but
If you were a kid in the 80s playing it, you could be massively chastised in your community in the States for admitting to it.
yeah,
To hid from people.
Yeah. Generally, you're gonna your first role playing experience will be as a player character.
Yes. Or PC.
PC, yeah, we'll probably use all sorts of terminology. So if I use some terminology, if any of us use it and we don't correct the other, like jump in and just explain. Yeah, cool. And if we miss any, tell us, and I will prostrate myself before you and send you a biscuit, if you so desire. They are good biscuits.
Yes.
Fancy biscuits for fancy listeners.
Yes. That's
Pandering.
good. I like that. That's good. It can be quite intimidating to be told to make up an entirely brand new person that's never existed and start pretending to be them. Now, different groups, and this is where communication is sort of is a good way to go before you start playing. Start talking with your DM, because some groups get really into the role play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And every word that is uttered while the group is sat around the table is considered to be in character. So there's a difference between what you say in character, which are the words your character is saying, and then your out of character table chat or description of your actions,
Yes.
etc.
I have a quite entertaining anecdote on the fact, if you'd like.
Go on then. Entertaining anecdotes here
yes.
on the Critical Twits.
Well, obviously my main experiences with roleplay are with you guys.
Yeah.
More specifically, Brian, you've been a newer addition, Aaron.
Yeah.
And
Makes him sound like he's an upgrade. He's like Brian 2.0 or something.
it's an upgrade for some of the people. But we do a particular thing that's died out a little bit more recently. But one of our old things to try and keep people in character was, if you want what you're saying to be considered out of character, was to hold your fist against your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you look like a bit of a twat and you try and avoid doing it.
Yeah.
This is not a universal phenomena. Not every group does this, and if you do it in front of other people, they look at you like you're a fucking nutter.
Well, yeah, because most of us tend to do it so it looks like we have some sort of gentle protrusion from our heads.
The idea originally from the player that brought it to our group was that you look like a dickhead.
Yeah.
Because you look like you were holding a dick on top of your head. Yeah.
So
it was just to encourage people to stay in character, to keep the role play flowing, because it's very easy to get distracted.
So essentially, you joined a new group, did that, and called somebody else at the table a dickhead.
Well, they were like going, what you doing?
I almost did it during a presentation at university once.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I had to explain that this is a thing we do in the other group, because there is, it's probably something that's worth pointing out to people. There's almost a spectrum of players, but whereas on one end of it you have I basically am playing a computer game where I just want to go through dungeons and hit things.
Yeah.
And on the other end of it you have I'm trying to write a book with my friends.
Yeah.
We're just telling stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's, I suppose, most role-play systems assume you fall on like the middle line.
Yeah.
And give you options either way.
Yeah, I think we fall slightly to the storytelling side of that line. We're probably fairly far across that line actually, but
yeah, I think a DM quite often can lead a group in this way as well.
Yeah.
Because they're in charge of where the focus is, but not always. I mean, a good DM reacts to the players as well.
But you also, you don't want to be sitting there going, right, and they say this to you, and you have a group that wants to say, I will try and persuade them by rolling my persuade skill.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what we mean. You don't want players from opposite ends of the spectrum in the same group because it can cause...
They're going to get frustrated.
Yes.
They can muddle along, but they need to be aware of each other's sort of proclivities.
Yeah.
I mean, having the group that we've got, there are players that will approach this slightly differently, and you try and take that into account. But talking to your DM about what kind of the play style is will also give you an idea of possibly where to focus.
Yeah.
A group that's all about the combat, probably playing something like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons that's very mechanics based,
especially your 4th edition D&D.
Oh, if they're playing 4th edition D&D, yeah. Maybe just run away anyway. No, don't.
But you might want to introduce them to an MMO instead, because that's essentially what they want.
It's tricky actually, because I think we could 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons D&D was very much maligned because it was trying to copy sort of World of Warcraft and those kinds of things with the refreshing powers.
Yeah.
Even the healer had a bit of magic and could heal themselves, which generally isn't the way that those games have worked for 30 years before, 40 years before pretty much, and it was kind of frowned upon. But I think we could have fun because we're playing a game with our friends.
Yeah, and that is the thing to remember.
Yeah.
Do we talk a bit about systems for the Spectrum? Like we said, D&D 4th edition is probably or furthest you're going to get towards the I like to hit things.
Yeah, I mean, I can't recall if it even has any skills or things for talking outside.
I think a lot of them were taken out.
Yeah, it was really streamlined, and you didn't do a lot. There were no sort of skills and abilities for outside.
At the same point, maybe that was to avoid I'm going to persuade him, I'll roll a dice. Maybe that take those out. It's like, well, you're going to talk to that person to do that instead.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the thinking behind it.
Maybe.
It might have just become a charisma check on one of your statistics.
Yeah. So if we wanted to look at the other end of the spectrum for stuff like that, the more roleplay focused, what would we be looking at?
World of Darkness.
Yeah.
That really heavily asks you to invest in being a character.
You could look more at possibly, say, the indie RPG market, something like Fiasco.
Yeah.
That I don't think you've played, Joe.
It didn't appeal.
Yeah. But we've played, haven't we?
Yeah, I love Fiasco.
We, back in episode 14, you can hear me, Aaron and Colin playing through a full game of Fiasco over to a double episode.
Yeah.
Set in the Wild West. There were no rules for resolving conflict apart from whether you had a good result or a bad result out of the entire scene that you were playing. So there is no rolling to hit or hit points or anything like that. It's very, very story focused, and that's very much, to me, that's probably the most extreme end of story that I have played.
Yeah, if you're looking for your more mainstream things, you've got, like Aaron said, any of the World of Darkness settings and possibly Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu, yes. If you're getting into combat, it's got some chunky combat rules, but generally, if you get into combat with an elder thing from the space beyond the stars, which is where the abyss dwells, it's probably just going to eat your face.
Yeah, so you are. It's got lots of mechanics for running away. The most running away mechanics ever.
Yeah, I mean the chase bit in that rule book, and we've just recorded our unboxing of Call of Cthulhu, and there's a whole chapter on chases because you will often go, it's a star vampire, but I'm going home very quickly while screaming my mother's maiden name.
So there is just as again for people, if this is for people that are very new,
I think
might push you towards.
Yeah, I'm hoping that anyone coming to this who's a role player will get something from this.
Yeah.
Because between us, I've been playing tabletop RPGs for 15 years.
Yeah.
Oh no, my first one was 17 years. There we go.
I'm probably looking at 10. Oh God, no! When was I playing at when I was at college?
Yeah.
Because I'd wake up in the morning, do your washing up, and then go to college.
Yeah, that was at least 11 years ago, getting on for 12 now.
Yeah, so 11, 12 for me.
3, maybe.
How long have you
4
had
years?
friends, Aaron?
Oh,
6 months.
who are they? Where are they? We need to kill them.
We upgraded him recently from acquaintance.
So he actually is Aaron 2.0.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you remember when in a podcast you were your own clone?
Yes, I do.
And I shat batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
I miss our
Fiasco is
specials.
a weird game.
That wasn't a fiasco. That was just us
That was just us. Yeah.
dicking about, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling to think when you joined. It's at least 2.5 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe.
So it's leaning on the 3 mark, I think.
Yeah, coming up for 3 years. So
Pre-uni, because you were
Yeah.
part of the group before we bullied
That's-
you with peer pressure into
It's
going
at
to
least
uni.
2.5.
yeah, three,
Three.
I reckon.
Excellent.
I think we're coming up for 3 because it was round about this time up for 3.
Yeah, it was during
Some kind of anniversary event where Aaron buys us cake.
So it's worth discussing with your DM both the group style
Yeah.
and the specifics of the game that you are playing.
Yeah.
And this is how roleplay differs maybe from playing a board game or a video game. It is a cooperative shared experience. And although it might seem like you're playing against the DM, actually the DM is just presenting you with challenges and with story for you to interact in. And it's not a case of being competitive in that way. You might play a competitive character who's competitive with the other characters or the world around them, but everyone's cooperating to tell a story together.
Yeah.
Or to smash through a dungeon together and get the loot at the end.
Yeah, again, a kind of mainstream example of that might be if you look to, say, the Lord of the Rings films, which everyone's associates with this kind of thing. You have Gimli and Legolas that are going, I killed 1, I killed 7, that only counts as 1 even though it's giant. You know, that kind of joking competition within it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even their initial dwarf, elf.
Yeah.
Again, you might have within your group, but within the players, but you shouldn't be actively thinking,
I could stab this person.
I could fuck Aaron up.
Yeah.
You should be trying to do what if your character is a bit like that, fine, but you might not last long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and quite often a group will have ways and means of dealing with interplayer conflict.
Yes.
We talked about that quite a bit in the in episode 13.
Yeah.
And there's some great anecdotes that I won't take us back through. I might think of a couple more. But we've always had, it's the characters that are in conflict. The players shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And if anything is actually upsetting people or going too far, or people feel like people are stopping them from playing their character or anything like that, you just break out into real life discussion and just sort it out. There shouldn't be any kind of element of real life competition in that way.
No, I mean, we've had some amazing moments of kind of I'm fairly certain, I think it's either Rob or yourself, Brian, has done something and I've gone, right, it's a hand on head out of character moment, fuck you, or like in character going fuck you, and then out of character going, that was fucking brilliant, I loved that, but I want you to die, because you can understand. It's separating the character's personality from your own as well sometimes.
Yeah, when we played one game, it was a one-shot game. So it was over 3 weeks, but it didn't continue on after that.
Yeah.
So you got your sort of your one-shots or your single adventures, and then your campaign, which is a linked series of stories.
Yes.
It's the difference between playing an episode of a TV show or playing like a box set.
Yeah, well, more of a film or a series.
Yes, yeah. So we were playing that, so we knew that was how it worked. We got all the way through. We were fighting off essentially the harbingers of the apocalypse, who had managed to intrude upon our domain because deep beneath the barracks where we had our people had lived for hundreds of years was an angel in a machine who was holding off the apocalypse that had destroyed everything else. I was playing the leader of the group.
Yeah.
I was the centurion of the legion. I had already fed my son, an NPC, a non-player character, to the demon, so I could run away. Plus, he was a dick, and he wasn't really mine. So it was fine. But I deliberately played a character that would sacrifice anything in order to achieve the goals, including himself.
Yeah.
So we get to the final bit. The demons catch up with us. There's this huge fight going on in front of the doorway to this machine. And we're not going to win. It became fairly obvious that we were massively outclassed. We played quite badly and sort of got injured. One of the players had gone mad and stabbed everyone else, and we had to murder them.
Wasn't Colin by any chance, was it?
No.
Oh,
Colin
okay.
was running this game, which is why it's messed up.
Okay.
And so my character, who was a bard in 3.5 edition Dungeons and Dragons, so was essentially a lettuce leaf with a hat, because they weren't very good. Managed to charm and inveigle and sing his way across to the entrance of the doorway. He went through, shut the door behind him, climbed in the machine, which left all the other players to die, but achieved his mission of sealing the place back up.
Yeah.
So I killed everyone else. Wouldn't have done that in a campaign,
Yeah.
because it would then have ruined the campaign. But at the end of a one-shot,
Yeah, it makes sense.
and everyone was like, "You dick, but we won! Yes, but no, but screw you, but yes." And it was quite a nice little moment to
yeah.
sort of survive, well, to complete the mission
Yeah.
in that way.
Something you've mentioned there, which is quite an interesting thing as well to bring up, is this idea of, I know it's a word I use all of the time, metagaming.
Yes.
And this is something that you will probably hear during your adventures within the role-playing worlds. Brian, you're making a decision based on outside knowledge, so it's not something your character knows.
Yeah, that's metagaming. So meta beyond the actual game of what the character knows.
So Brian, they're saying that if I was doing a campaign, I wouldn't have done that.
yeah.
He's at that point he is metagaming because he's making a decision because he knows this carries on, not because it's necessarily the best thing for his character.
Yeah.
Now that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. Like in that scenario.
In that scenario, that's fine, because you have to weigh up the fact that my character might have done this differently, but I don't want to ruin everyone's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun to play with a character that is not flexible to the point of causing conflict.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to play a character and we don't want to have to compromise that character all the time. But at the same time, you don't want to ruin the fun of everyone around the table. It's why we had, for quite a while, when we used to play Dungeons and Dragons, we had a paladin ban. Because paladins have an incredibly unflexible set of rules by which they live, and they're not allowed to associate with nasty people. And therefore, they end up telling the rest of the party what to do. The rest of the group, the party of players.
Okay.
I was just about to mention, if we're going to go into specifics, paladins I think are the prime example. They are, again, for those that aren't aware, they are your holy righteous warriors. They are on the scale of alignments, so how the morality of your character plays out, I guess.
Yeah.
They are what's in the lawful good end. You have two axes. You have lawful, neutral, and chaotic, and you have good, evil, good, neutral, and evil.
Yeah.
And you will fit somewhere within there.
So 9 possible options.
Yeah. So your lawful good characters are, no, you must follow the law and you mustn't do bad things. And when you're playing a character, like if you've got a rogue in the party that's your sneaky, might steal things person, you don't want a character sitting there going, "Don't steal, it's bad."
You sound like an 80s cartoon right at the end. What did we learn today, naughty thief?
I take things, you hit me with your sword. And it's stuff like that can be really restrictive. Any kind of
alignment systems can be really restrictive.
Yes, I was going to say anything playing lawful.
Yeah,
can be restrictive.
Yeah.
chaotic less so, but because
But can cause trouble if people think I'm going to give the king a wedgie because I'm chaotic. Oh, now we've been banished from the kingdom and Jeff's dead when we fought the guards.
Yeah, a lot of this is it. Alignment systems can very much push you into actions that you think you should do because you've not necessarily grasped the full concept.
Yeah.
You can play lawful characters, for example, that give no shits about the law of the land. They hold to their own code.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might have a monk that is lawful.
Yeah.
That doesn't care whether or not they steal, but does care whether or not who they're stealing from.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, I don't find that alignment systems, although people do create characters using that, there are things. I don't think alignment systems tend to encourage that too much. Because they're putting you in a box.
Yep.
So you're naturally going to lean towards a particular archetype rather than going, like you said, a monk's going to go, that monk's going to feel, I can't steal from that person because they're poor. But that rich guy, well, it doesn't really matter. He should be given to people
I
anyway.
think they're a nice way, possibly, of just getting the idea of having some boundaries and restrictions on what your characters can and can't do.
Yeah.
But they're not the be all and end all.
No, it was very nice to have as when I started doing this kind of thing to go. There's part of me that just always went, I'll just play neutral, or true neutral.
This is the thing as well. I mean, in Dungeons and Dragons, we're kind of going off on a tangent, but it's meant to be that like 80% of people are true neutral because they're good to their friends and family, but they don't, the people they don't like, they don't want anything to do with and wouldn't go out their way to help them, and they follow the laws of the land, but if they can find a way through or they find them unjust, they might rail against them. So most people should fit in the middle.
Yes.
But it's very rare to see a true neutral character, actually.
Yeah.
Unless you're a druid.
I think because it casts you adrift slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like neutral evil druids.
I think you get to a point with these
druids.
games if you like... They push you towards extremes, especially in a Dungeons and Dragons setting, which is quite you are playing a above average amazing hero.
Yeah.
So you like to be able to go, no, I will play the absolute knob that I can't be in real life. Or, I'll play a really good character because I'm a bit of a dick and I hate people.
When your character's wielding two magic swords at the same time and firing lightning bolts out there at us, you're playing quite a heightened version of reality. So playing an archetype, a heightened character, can actually fit with... I mean, D&D has its origins in pulp stories and things where archetypes and strong characters, knowing exactly what a character would do because they're the maiden in distress or they're the rough hero or whatever. You nail that on fairly quickly and they don't necessarily vary too much. But we've kind of moved beyond the alignment system now, and if we were to go back and play that kind of thing, I think we'd take that crutch away.
Yeah. It was like I said, it was nice as a starting player.
Actually, I can see that.
Because it gives you that bit of direction. I think as you progress and as you gain more experience in role playing, you don't feel you need to pigeonhole yourself quite so much when you build a character because you see the world is full of shades of grey.
Yeah.
And I think that being able to portray that within your characters that you build actually becomes almost a more, daft as it sounds to say, realistic and engaging thing.
Yeah.
You feel like you play a more nuanced character and it helps you get more engaged with it. You don't want that paladin casting detect evil, seeing that shopkeeper over there is evil, running in his store murdering and saying, in the name of the Holy Lord, praise be. Covered in blood. Screaming children running. Are you really lawful good if you've just run in and done that? Of course you, but sometimes it does that. And I like to take that crutch away now that we're experienced. One thing I did do quite a lot when I was running and we were using alignment is I'd get the group when they were building their characters to pick a party alignment. So for instance they'd be neutral good, and then everyone could be within one step of that. So they could be neutral good, lawful good, chaotic good, or true neutral. You wouldn't have anyone that was chaotic evil palling around with them because
they're too far, and it just reduces some of maybe that conflict.
I mean, it's a really nice way of, and I would suggest that to anyone that's looking at starting a campaign with newer people. It's a really good way of doing it. Because again, having played under that system,
I know that lore and chaos clash less than good and evil.
Yes,
because they tend to come up less. You're playing adventurers, so
you're generally out in the wilderness without many laws.
Or you're down the mine 14 levels fighting a troglodyte. It doesn't matter whether you believe that the king is always right, but it does if you capture a prisoner. It does matter whether you're going to let him go or torture him to death.
Yeah,
for instance, as an extreme.
Yeah, I mean, another nice point on that as well is the reason that the lore and chaos don't often do is because if you're taking that slightly more abstract view of it and you are looking at things like a personal code more than the law of the land for your lawful character, having someone else that doesn't give a shit about the laws, actually you might not either. You just might stick to your own personal ones.
Yeah.
So there is much less potential for them to clash because good and evil are, as much as they're not, they are kind of set concepts within ourselves.
Yeah.
Especially morality is society based, but we are all in the same society, so our morality is fairly similar. And we know this. Murdering a child is evil.
Yeah.
Saving the children is good.
Yeah.
And there might be.
But where does lore and chaos come into that? It's different.
This is it, and they're a little bit more fuzzy around the edges.
Yeah, they're more sort of philosophical ideas rather than moral ideas. I mean, morality is a branch of philosophy anyway, but it's a one that's codified by laws, for instance.
Yeah. Well, and again, it takes our morality is generated from the society you are within because we're all in the same one. And that's a global thing now.
Yeah, theoretically.
To a point where most people in most societies will take the same stance on what is good and what is evil in a general, overall sense.
And if you're playing a game like D&D, you're definitely talking about everybody in that world is going to follow that same rule set, no matter where they're from.
Yeah, I mean, you might have different cultures within it, but it's not so far from us.
If you're evil, you've got the same demonic god as somebody at the other side of the world.
And the other weird thing is evil characters within the game identify themselves as evil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
whereas you look
Hitler wouldn't have identified himself as evil.
He would have thought he was good.
Yeah, but most people would have clearly pointed him as being evil.
But within the Dungeons and Dragons universe, they are quite happily going, no, I'm Lord of the Evil. I am all of the evil. Worship me and my evilness.
Yes, I am the dark black Lord of the Abyss.
Yeah, look at my spikes.
I'm Captain Evil. Sniff my halberd.
Yeah, so you don't have that problem of people thinking they're one way, but actually they're the other, and it's much more black and white.
Yeah.
Literally, good and evil.
Yeah.
Those weird grey
what we've
people
actually
in the
touched on, because I was going to try to impose some kind of order to this chaos. We've swapped. Is what we're talking about here is just, I mean, that's a long digression that's mostly Dungeons and Dragons based.
Yeah.
That's part of the rules of the game. And I found, when I was sort of sat down to think about this and we were discussing this as an idea, mostly because we've had new players joining us recently, and it's kind of something that's been on my mind.
Yeah.
With sort of helping them. There's three aspects of building your character. Mm-hmm. There's the rules and how they mechanically interact with the game and its systems.
Yeah.
There is the character's background, so the experiences that have shaped that character.
Yep.
And then there is the personality of that particular character, how you play them at the tabletop, how they react to the situations in front of them.
Yeah.
So you've almost got what happened, what's driving them forward, and then, like you say, the way that's... Well, it's almost the way that's done in game. Because you'd say how they are is probably very much linked to what's driving them forward.
Yeah.
That's what's pushing the character into what it is now and the decisions it's making now.
Yeah.
Because it's probably going to have what's happened, its end goal, almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have the mechanics that make it work in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in the system, I suppose.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong one to come at first. You might go, and again, if you're playing something that's very mechanical, if you're playing let's say you're playing Dungeons and Dragons for the
Yeah.
sake of argument, or Pathfinder, which is the same thing.
Weirdly enough, I mean, because we are taking that as almost the baseline, because it kind of is.
It's kind of our baseline, and it's also the most popular role play in the
It's the
world.
industry
Pathfinder
standard.
and Dungeons and Dragons are.
If I want someone to understand what I'm doing, if I go, I'm playing role play games with my friends, if they're slightly geeky, that's what I would say, because they will go, oh, okay. If they're not at all, I will say I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, because it is now.
Yeah.
Whether it's just through exposure via pop culture things like Big Bang Theory or whatever, it has become the iconic
thing.
This is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was in Stranger Things recently.
Yes.
Yes.
For instance.
And there was a TV show. They had its own cartoon.
Yes.
You know, so it is the version.
With Uni, the unicorn.
I never watched it. It was rubbish.
Which is where my fetish came from.
Unicorn was crap.
It's a unicorn.
I don't think I've ever watched a full episode of that, you know?
No, I never could. Even as a child.
I watched loads of it, genuinely. But there are lots of other games, as we've mentioned, and we'll draw from. We have played quite a wide variety of games now, so we'll draw from different places as well. But that's something. The rules are very much focused around that in Dungeons and Dragons. It's something you have to consider if you're just playing the game straight out the book.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. What everyone else is playing is something that you might want to consider. So, for instance, if you're joining a Dungeons and Dragons group, if they don't have someone who can heal everyone,
then they're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah, so play that character, fill a niche that fits the game.
Well, you have your you almost have that kind of I would say the Holy Trinity as a thing that's done in Mamorpagas. MMO are massively multiplayer online role playing games because. You have your tank that stands there and takes damage. You have your healer, and you have your damage dealers. Now, I would argue that role-playing games are the fourth one, which is kind of your
skills and.
I was going to say specialist. In a way, because in typical D&D, you have a fighter.
Yeah.
You have a wizard.
Yeah, the fighter doesn't generally deal all the damage. The fighter is strong and tough and holds
jumps in
people
front
up.
of the line of goblins. The wizard casts fireballs to kill the goblins. The healer heals the damage the goblins have done to the fighter. And then you have a rogue that possibly sneaks ahead and disables all the traps laid by the goblins and unlocks the little goblin doors.
Yes, and occasionally appears behind the goblin's boss and stabs him in the bum because he's snuck up behind him. But you get this in other games. I mean, I remember playing a game of Cyberpunk. And in that game, we had, again, you get this quite a lot in class-based systems. Some games will let you make anything, like Call of Cthulhu. It points you towards archetypes, but you can literally pick any mix of skills that you like. Playing Cyberpunk, though, we had a samurai, we had a hacker, we had a sniper, and we had the faceman. Now, if someone was to join that group and go, ha, I would like to be the one that leads all the talking and talks to everyone, the character playing the faceman is going to go, that's kind of my job. Whereas if someone comes in and goes, I want to be your getaway driver, and I want to really shine when we do that, and I can get involved in all the other stuff, but we need to get away, and I'm going to do all that kind of stuff, and I'll be the thrill seeker of the group.
That becomes that character's your moment in the spotlight.
Everyone wants a moment to shine. And some roles let you shine more obviously. The fighter beheading the thing,
or the mage destroying the entire flank of the goblin army.
Even when the healer turns back the tide of undead with their magical powers, or the rogue sneaks ahead, steals the thing you want, and goes, "The dragon's still asleep. Let's leg it."
Or finds that hidden door that has a cache of treasure in there, or something.
Or rectally abuses the goblin boss. Rogues are quite. Varied in their spotlights.
They are.
You're laughing at your own joke there.
But if you sneeze at one vigorously, it falls over and dies.
Not enough white blood cells in the rogues of the world.
No, they are. It's all the hiding in the shadows.
And again, something like Call of Cthulhu, if you're joining an existing game, then find out what's at the table already, and maybe find a slot to fill that will make the other players embrace you and like you. If you're creating something to start with, So if you're starting from scratch, discuss with the other players. I'm thinking of playing this. I'm thinking of playing that. We did this recently when we started our Mutant Gen Lab Alpha campaign that we reviewed in depth last podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing that could happen is if we'll use Gen Lab as an example this time.
Yeah.
So you can go listen to that if you want to understand the words I'm using. If we turn up and go, right, we have 4 scavengers.
Yeah.
Each of us have our own little stash of crap.
Yeah.
It's not really going to make for...
You're not going to be able to defend yourself very well, or find where the other ones to run off to.
Don't get me wrong, if you need to find a thing to get through a thing, one of you's probably fucking got one.
Yeah.
But like you say, you don't have a hunter, so if one of you runs off or gets lost, what are you going to do? You get into a fight and you'll hide behind your shopping trolleys full of rubbish. It's... Where do they get shopping trolleys in Paradise Valley?
Tesco.
Is there a Tesco's? Is that the Forbidden Zone? Is it?
Like Paradise Valley, it's probably Waitrose.
I look at Paradise Valley as being centre parks, to be honest. There was a little supermarket in there at one point, and there's probably a bowling alley we haven't found
I
yet.
think the Forbidden Zone is Tesco's.
Yeah.
The labyrinth that we hear about is an underground facility.
It's an underground
facility.
It's an underground Tesco's 24 hour.
Lasagna.
How? It's made of people. I was going to be a horse. I was going to be everything, though.
You were.
I almost asked RDM if I could be a unicorn. Even if I was just a horse
wearing a toilet roll.
A horse with an ice cream cone stuck to its face.
For anyone that is looking to DM for the first time, you will put up with players like Brian.
Yeah.
Who make your life awkward.
I do very, very much. But hopefully that makes it fun. You don't want to be playing exactly the same character. If you think, and this is another place we get inspiration from, if you think of TV, books, films, anything with characters in, characters tend to have a niche.
Yeah.
You take something like Firefly, each of those characters in there has a job that they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a different background, a different personality, but they have a job that they do. There's overlap. I mean, Jane isn't the only one who can kill people with guns, but he's the best at it because he's the soldier archetype.
You have Kaylee, for example, who is your engineer class archetype. She would probably be your specialist in that regard. You have people like Mal himself, who again would be your talkative, charismatic rogue type guy.
With a couple skill advances or levels put into something fighty because he was in a war and he can do that stuff quite well as well.
So without doing the whole cast, that gives you a rough idea of how these things play out.
So in Gen Lab Alpha, I played a healer. I'm also quite good at fighting, but that's always a bonus because we expected a lot of combat.
You show up the fighter every single session.
Sorry, Aaron, I've broken my own rules.
Well, that's the thing. you get into the fights quicker than me.
Yeah.
And you're really hard, and so do lots of damage. And I can't come in and go, boop, poke with a little stick, and they die. But
you're going to advance beyond that because I'm relying on dangerous animal powers that could backfire.
And we've come across a kind of singular enemy so far, whereas my character's built to take on multiple because I've taken essentially the fighter archetype. So whereas you've taken basically the paladin.
A little bit, fighty and healy. Yeah. And I do have quite a moral code, actually.
Yeah.
But not in a dick way, hopefully.
Paladin wanker.
we used to call people paladin wankers. I've forgotten about that. Joe's playing essentially our
bard?
A little bit, because he can make us better at what we do. He's playing a seer that can predict the future and use that to give us bonuses. But you're also very good at the social aspects of the game. You can dominate the other animals. You have a high rank, so other animals look up to you. So you're playing sort of that kind of character.
Yeah,
which is not normally what you do.
No, I wanted to play something a bit different, and I looked at this as a chance to play. I normally will play something that has useful skills, but I like to build in a decent amount of combat ability into my characters. In this one, I am refusing to put any ranks into fight or shoot or edit, all those kind of skills, because that's not going to be the character. He's not going to. If I wanted to take that, I would have taken loads of fight and Predator and just murdered the shit out of everything because it's really, really, really hard. But
I was trying to come up with sort of a gentle giant, so a character that is more themed around doing the healing and supporting people, but he's enormous, and if you mess with him, he will headbutt you and you will die.
This is it. We found out that because you basically went, I'm going to be the giant thing that everyone goes, oh my god, it's huge, and then isn't that bad.
So we found on the expectation.
We have found out though that you've. And I don't know whether this was planned or it's developed as you've played, but you do have this temper almost.
Yes.
Whereas if you fuck with the little ones, you get the horns.
It started off because I started off protective of Aaron's character.
Yeah.
And then the rest of you have come along, and I feel like because he's the biggest and he sees himself as being the strongest, even though Aaron's character is actually probably better in a fight than him now, he feels like he has to look after the other people. And that's become a strong part of his personality that I wasn't actually planning, but it has developed as we've gone along. And that's something that we'll talk about as we go, through.
Developing your characters.
Yeah. One good... Oh, sorry.
No, I was actually just going to say, where are we... Have we got a next topic?
Just finishing on the rules. One thing you can do as well is use the rules, the abilities, the feats that your character's got to inform other aspects of the character, either the background, the personality. So if you take a character with, say, an ability called Improved Initiative, which means they're really quick to react, you could play your character as being quite jumpy.
Yeah.
As being someone who's always ready to go, because it's part of them.
Well, this is. They might be quite twitchy. They might just be that little bit more aware and be quite quick-witted.
Yeah.
As well. You might be playing a character that you have taken. You've started beyond level 1, so you've got quite a hard character anyway. Again, looking back to D&D, that's got all the riposte, flourish type, feint skills because you are an amazing duelist. You go up to someone in a fight and go, stab you in the eye, I win.
Yeah.
And now you could choose to play that as someone that is very...
sort of barbed-tongued as well, maybe.
Possibly. They might be very, very extravagant and, well, I'm the best, look at me, look at how flashy I am, stab. Yeah. Or they might be someone that just doesn't stand out in a crowd. Yeah. People underestimate, and then gets the better of them that way. Now, so you can take your rules in lots of different directions. So you can let your character influence the way you build them rules-wise, or you can go, I want to play a character that can do this because I think it's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Now, is that going to make them... Again, I want to be someone who's very good at sword fights. Is that going to make them really flashy? Yeah. Is it going to make them overconfident? Is it going to make them kind of just... part of the crowd that no one notices that then goes stab.
And if you've got something unusual, so if your character uses an unusual weapon, they have an unusual ability, they have a strange cybernetic implant, they
have a horn on their head when they're supposed to be a horse.
Yes. You can feed that into what we're going to talk about next, which is the character background. So where did they get that ability?
Yeah. How I was born with the horn.
But what did that horn do to that character as they were growing up, being the only weird horse with a horn?
Killed my mother.
Born with... Jesus. But you can use that to inform your background, or you can use your background to inform your choice of abilities. This is where I think a lot of people sort of struggle, is that you just get lots of options.
Yeah.
And it's like, just start picking your way through.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll go on and discuss obviously all the different aspects, but what I do, because I sometimes struggle. The first thing I pick is a thing I like.
Yeah.
So if I go, I have a character, my mutant character, Kane, was stolen straight out of a bunch of books.
Yeah, that's fine. And that was one thing I was going to come on to. We'll talk about it now, though, because I think it's a good time to do it.
I can't remember the name of the books.
Because it might be that we started with rules, but you might just be struggling for, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
To make the rules.
So I went, okay, so he's a fairly confident character who's quite good in a fight. But he's also quite clever.
Yeah.
But will do anything to get the job done. So I went, cool, my stats in Mutant are strength, agility, wits, and the other one?
Empathy.
So I went, bollocks to empathy, that can be low.
Yep.
Wits will be fairly high. Dex will be fairly high. And strength will be really high. He's good in a fight.
Yeah.
Cool. Now, I want him to be good at hand-to-hand fighting, so I'll take the stuff that makes him quite good
Yeah.
at hand-to-hand. Because I was quite good at punching people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, to be fair, I then progressed from that point.
Have you used any ideas from elsewhere? Have you sort of picked someone as an example of someone you wanted to be?
Almost a template, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine to take something.
We won't judge you, Aaron.
Some people are like, well, you've not made something new, but the newness necessary. If you just copy something, people could be a bit like, or it can feel a bit sort of bland. But if you could say, right, I want to play Daredevil, but I'm playing him in a fantasy setting. Immediately, he's different to Daredevil.
Yeah.
And you take it off in a different direction.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. He's not a lawyer anymore.
If you were playing,
what other aspect might he have done? Well, he might have defended serfs from marauders or something. In that case,
and then that changes it, doesn't it? If you were to play a modern day superhero RPG and go, I want to play Daredevil, then
that might be
maybe
boring.
Watch Daredevil. Yeah. But if you play Daredevil crossed with the Hulk.
Yeah.
So it's Daredevil, but if you piss him off, he goes mad. Okay, that's something new.
But we're talking our group. You might be in a group that all go, I want to play Daredevil. Cool. Well, I'm going to play Thor. Okay. Well, I'm going to play this.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's whatever works for your group.
Especially if you're playing something like the Firefly RPG or the Dresden Files RPG. If people are happy with that, the problem I found with it is that when someone goes, well, I want to play Kaylee. And then they do something and someone goes, well, Kaylee wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And then it's why it's better to try and put some distance or a twist or something slightly different.
What also works is if you think you're in a group that might go, you've copied that straight out of this. If you've read books other people haven't, like the books I stole Kane from.
Which are?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay. So I thought it'd be nice to plug some books now.
No, they're really good books. Give me a second. I'll find out the name.
Yeah.
Because they're some of the best books I've read ever, and I think both of you would enjoy them.
Yeah. Well, that's essentially. I've done it for this for the Gen Lab Alpha.
Okay, cool.
A little bit.
See, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I had no ideas, essentially. It was a little bit, so I was leaning on a bit of a crutch.
I actually found Gen Lab Alpha really difficult because I backed it in a frenzy of I Love Mutant, then I looked at it and I was a bit like, ooh, this is
how
a bit
does
strange.
how does my background work? I don't understand how my clan works quite yet.
But I'm absolutely loving it now.
Yeah, and to give Rob credit where it's due, he's allowed certain things, I've discussed of things that kind of shape stuff. And that's worked back and forth. But I try to base my character a little bit on Usagi Yojimbo.
Okay.
Who is a samurai hair, which is very similar to what I've done now.
Yeah,
personality trait. And Rosanori Kenshin, or the swirly-eyed samurai.
Yeah.
From both Samurai X and the TV series that's coming up.
Yeah.
That's hopefully the angle I'm going to develop my character into.
Yeah.
I think I've relied on it a little bit too much of a crutch. I don't feel like I've given it enough of a personality yet.
But you can develop that as you play, and that's something we'll talk about as well, is how characters hopefully will change as you play.
That has definitely been part of this one.
Yeah, which is good. I don't tend to do this. Just because thinking about it, I can't.
Look at you and your creativity.
Yeah, no. That's the thing. It's
bloody writers.
Some people, some people are like, oh, this is. What tends to happen is I come up with what I think is an original idea, and then about 6 months later, when I've been playing them for a while, I'll realise the 3 different things that got mixed up in my head that I'd forgotten about, which is what I'm drawing on.
Yeah.
But because that's how creativity works for me. It's like my mind is a blender, and then it spits out something, and I go, oh, this is really cool, and then I realise where I've stolen it from.
Actually, while we're talking about the personalities of your character as well, something that I think is very, very important and you can get carried away with as a new player, and I've fallen into this trap a couple of times, is pick a character you can consistently be.
Yeah.
If you are a miserable shit, don't play the character that's always happy, because there will be a week where you cannot summon the energy to be Mr. fucking Sunshine anymore.
Yeah.
And your entire character and the experience of everyone else sort of changes. Now, don't get me wrong, it's nice to play something a bit different.
Yeah.
Because not all of my characters are hyper-competitive arseholes like I am.
Fair.
But, like as Brian said, my current lizard Thelonious isn't my standard character. An example of my standard character would be one of the 24-hour campaigns we did. Play for 24 hours solid for charity. I played half wizard, half cleric, master of the arcane and the divine, Dick. Who ended up stealing the treasure for himself to gain his own power, and when the doors have shut, well, I'll just stand here and drink all the potions of amazingness and then open the doors and carry on the fight.
Potions that were bottled souls that powered you up. You didn't earn XP in that game, because a lot of games you'll earn experience points to make your character better. In that one, you drank one of these potions and you just got better.
We had a couple of them, and they were
stole them all.
Everyone charged into the room, the doors shut, and I was outside, so I went, well, no one can see, I'll down these and then open the doors and be amazing. And it was fun.
But I don't know if I totally agree with that, though. I think my favourite character I've played so far has been Blank. Just trying to remember the name. Because it was.
Did you draw a blank?
I did. That's what reminded me. Funny enough.
So there's a character called Blank. You weren't leaving a gap to write in later.
Can I play a Cards Against Humanity card to fill in? Your character's name is
David Bowie riding in on a unicorn made of lightning, or tiger made of lightning. I've got unicorns on the.
You do.
Unicorns.
But Blank was one of my favourite characters. It's not normally what I go. I tend to go for a bit more the slightly solemn, quiet-spoken, occasionally aggressive type, because I tend to be very tired on a Friday night. It's a bit easier, but...
so you normally fall into what I do?
Yes.
Or what I suggested, at least.
However, Blank was a sociopathic female cannibal.
She had a mutation that let her gain lots of abilities for eating people.
Yes, because we're playing mutants. So it was able to consume people, who was just excessively hyperactive a little bit.
Yeah, she was quite in your face for one of your characters, very much so.
Like,
maybe for
I
one
missed
of mine,
Blank,
maybe not.
didn't I?
Yes,
Blank was good.
I found when I came to go play Blank in the evening, I found I myself had a bit more energy. Possibly because I was playing something that's less me.
So
it's like, okay, I need to hype up and stuff and things like that.
But if you had started with a character like that, would you have struggled to maintain it week in, week out?
There is that possibility, because I could have been tired on certain weeks. But I might have been able to build... You could potentially build that into your character.
So the other thing is a confidence thing.
Yes.
Now, and this is the thing. Now, I'm quite happy to play whatever now.
Yeah.
But originally, I stuck to characters that I could happily portray. Without too much effort, because again, role playing's weird when it comes to you're playing with friends, which I don't know if that makes it better or worse, because you're like, oh my god, I don't want to seem like a massive dickhead in front of the people I spend a lot of my time with.
I would avoid playing an intelligent character, again, possibly because I'd be tired and I could be a bit dense occasionally, because I know potentially I might not actually
This is one thing,
perpetually confused. I wouldn't actually be able to necessarily portray that intelligence properly on the table, so I'd just completely fucking avoid it. Some
I have had occasionally people who weren't sort of confident speaking or particularly eloquent off the top of their heads, trying to play the charming, smooth talking character, and that can be quite tricky if they're not that way inclined, because that's a personal quality. We can all pretend to be strong, because that's a quality that's in the game.
It's a physical attribute.
Mental qualities can be quite sort of difficult to play, but you can overcome that with a certain element of, I really want to try and charm these, but I can't think of anything to say. And a good DM will sort of help you through that. And that maybe even build your confidence to try. So, there's different... Again, it's down to sort of table approaches. Roleplay can vary greatly from group to group.
And this is one of the things as a DM you can use to help steer your group in the right direction. If you have someone that struggles with things like that, maybe, because most of them have it built in, have it be a skill check initially. I want to charm them to do this. Okay, cool. We'll roll your dice and see if you beat their skill levels. And as you go on and as the character, and they get more developed in the character, go, okay, well, rather than rolling the dice, talk this one out.
What would you do?
If you get stuck, we'll just roll the dice and that's fine. But let's try and up it. And
I've done quite a lot as a dungeon master as well, is when someone's made the effort to try it, is if even if they've not maybe said it in the best way, if they've come up with a good idea, or they said, well, I want to try and do this, this, this and this, in this way, or they actually have said something really eloquent, I'll give them a bonus to the dice roll.
Yeah.
But I'll do that if we've got a cinematic fight and someone grabs something that I mentioned in passing describing the room and uses that in a cool way, I'll be rooting for them to succeed, and I'll secretly make it easier for them.
Leaping off the balcony onto the chandelier to swing over and land on the goblin leader's head and stab him in the arse, which apparently is what happens now because Brian said it earlier.
Yeah. Doesn't always suit every kind of game. If you're playing a really serious, gritty game,
doing that in Call of Cthulhu, maybe not.
Be like, okay.
Which anus?
Yeah. The one at the front of the train. As we discovered looking at horror on the Orient Express.
It was horror, and it was on the Orient Express.
And it was a giant anus on the front of it. So there's, as we said, these things all interact at the same time, which is why we're jumping around. But when we talk about sort of the character's background, I've always found that their background is useless unless it impacts the game in any way. So unless the background affects the personality or includes plot hooks that the DM or dungeon master, the person running the game, can use in the game, there's no point. There's no point writing a 25-page background for your character if you then ignore everything because it's in the past and you just play yourself at the table. There is nothing wrong with playing yourself, by the way. If you're very new to this, just go, if I lived in a medieval world where there were elves and less dysentery, how would things go? And go with that. That's fine.
I think I'd want to learn magic. I'd probably be quite like, look at me, I can cast spells, peasants.
I'd be like that.
Yeah, me and you both.
Yeah,
we'd either be ruling the world or at constant war.
Yes. So, I'd be dead upside down in a ditch by the time I was 16. I was an awkward child.
Yeah, I mean that works. An interesting. Again, another system to kind of bring up and mention, I think, because we discussed this recently, is Through the Breach, the Malifaux role-playing game.
Yeah.
Now, that makes a huge deal out of your background.
Yeah.
You randomly generate... You missed this, didn't you?
Yeah, I did miss this.
You randomly generate your background by flipping some cards. So it could be... Because the whole game is about fate.
Yeah.
Malifaux in general has such strong ties to fate.
Yeah, and you don't cheat cards, you cheat fate by putting a card down. You start with like a station.
Yeah.
So it's what your parents did and what you were born into.
Yes.
But this will also give you the first part of your prophecy that's foretold as to what your doom is.
I'm just trying to think. My parents were farmers, I believe.
Yeah.
Rob's parents were spies because Rob is always the spy.
And what's quite nice is that gives you how your station ends, so it foretells your death.
Yeah,
so everything's circular, which is quite a nice idea.
Yeah. So it goes around and goes, this happened, and then there was a potential tragedy, and so you've done this, and
but you've got enough room to kind of flesh out the details of that.
And everything is random. You get to assign the stats where you like.
Yeah.
But your actual spread of stats is determined randomly. So you could be really bland and just have like +1, +1. 0, -1, which is quite boring. Yeah. Or you could have -3, 0, 0, +3, and you're really polarised.
Yeah. And that's all generated by when you generate your background.
Okay.
And it's a very interesting system. Now, we were discussing it, like, from a character point of view, I quite enjoyed it, because it did the difficult bit for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I then built around it.
Yes, yeah. Like some of the options away, which is actually quite useful.
Yeah.
So you want to have your background of your character affect the way your character is or how they are in the world.
Yeah.
So it might be that it gives them a certain view on life. It might be that it gives them a goal they want to accomplish. I know, Aaron, your background includes in Gen Lab, your younger brother being kidnapped by the bad guys.
Well, that's was built into things, but so basically the entire rest of my line has been taken away at some point and is never returned. So it's like remaining evidence of the tribe. And
probably makes your character feel like they're next.
Yes. Yeah.
So
which is why I'm constantly, the watchers are there, I don't want to be near it, I want to go away. Because it frightens my character.
Yeah, and
they don't want to show it, but they're frightened because like I said, the last of
And every time you're fearful of the Watchers, it makes Murakami want to look after you more.
Yeah, in which case you get the protectiveness and the aggression starts to come out of Murakami.
Murakami's goal is to be free.
Yeah.
Because as a yak, he climbed the highest mountain in Paradise Valley and saw an even bigger one further away. And that's what he wants. He wants to go there. But he also has in his background, he has a yak companion, and the two of them travel together. And I fully expect terrible things to happen to his yak companion.
Yes.
Because, yes, it's part of my background that I was travelling with this person, but they're my friend, they're an NPC that the DM can use to generate story and conflict and to keep things going. So it's something that affects the world.
Putting things like that into your background, other people, like, I've got dead parents, yeah, okay, fine, but unless they're being reanimated, they're not going to be much thing. But if you've got a long-lost sibling that could turn up, or a ex-lover or anything like that that can be thrown in to add a bit of, oh my god, I actually care about this situation.
Yeah.
And the best thing my favourite, it's not my favourite role-playing moment, it's one of my favourite role-playing moments, and it was my favourite moment of just sort of something that I hadn't expected to happen, and it was very character focused. As I said, I like story. I like to tell a story with my friends that we can then go, do you remember when you did that and that happened? I don't tend to go, do you remember when you rolled a 20 and then you rolled 46 dice?
Yeah.
Because I probably got bored and went for a wee because you were counting. I like the story moments. And our current DM was playing as one of my players in a cyberpunk game. He was a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
He was sat looking through the scope of his rifle at one of the other PCs approaching an enemy, and they basically the other PC wanted to get the thing they were after and get out of the nightclub without anything going bad. Our DM was playing the muscle, hidden away on the opposite rooftop, watching what was going on. Now, in the character's background, he was divorced and undergoing a very, very, very nasty custody battle. Part of his character motivation, he wanted his kids back.
Yeah.
So a lot of the money he was getting was to pay his legal bills and to prove that he could look after his kids. So it was a nicely developed character, from the player, giving me this thing. So he'd been involved in this custody battle. I thought, what's the worst thing that can happen to him now, just to put him off watching what's going on? So he gets a phone call from his ex-wife. Now, this being a cyberpunk campaign, he can patch it through to his earpiece and carry on doing what he's doing. But she then accuses him of not turning up to pick up the kids, and they were due that day. Now, they as far as his character was concerned, that's not what was meant to happen at all. And I had a very long and involved post-spousal argument with the character. And when it was done, I was like, cool, let's take a break. The other players had been sort of watching and were interested in that. And I said, are you okay? Because you seem really angry. And he was like, oh, no, that was my character. My character was angry. But I genuinely thought at one point he was going to leap across the table and rip my throat out. Because he'd got into character. And it was just this little moment that was really, really nice, that as a DM, I didn't have to work for that. I didn't have to plan anything.
Yeah.
It all came from the player. So I love it when players feed me these little tidbits to do, and I try to do it for the DM as much as possible to include things. And he was distracted when things went down and took a penalty to his dice roll. It was great.
I mean, we've had these moments, and again, this is why I say we a lot closer to the roleplay side of the spectrum than the combat side. We had in Rise of the Rune Lords, where we managed to incapacitate and tie up a small dragon, which was weird, but not the point of the story. And
it sounds kinky or disturbing.
Then I think we spent 3 hours arguing in character over whether or not we should kill it or release it or try and cast a magic spell to change its alignment and make it not a shit anymore. And about, I don't know, just over the 3 hour mark, I think Colin got bored and shot it in the head. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
And this was the weird thing. Like, it was my character going, no, it should die, it should die, it should die, it should die.
Yeah.
Because I was playing the
Cock Paladin.
I was playing the Paladin wanker at that point.
Yeah.
But had the we'd finally come to an agreement after 3 hours of being at each other's throats over this, and then we all just instantly went, right, you're a dick, and had a big argument with Colin. And that was something that really we should have gone. Well, I say should have gone. Most groups would have gone, cool, we've tied up the dragon. We either kill it or we do something. Yeah, right, let's carry on.
Yeah.
Or just fucking leave it here. It shouldn't have been much, but a large part of our evening
was
basically achieving nothing. But that always stands out as quite a good time because there was so much of that where we were just talking in character at each other.
Yeah.
And I think it was mine and your characters, Brian, that were mostly me being the it's evil, it should die, and you being no, everything's got a chance. Look, we can cast redemption on it. Yeah. It's not going to work. It's evil. It should die. It will just kill more people. It's bad.
Yeah. But I was playing, and this comes back to what Aaron was saying about playing someone very different to you. I was playing a very naive, happy-go-lucky cleric of death. Yeah. My inspiration for this, because we talk about where characters come from, was the Eddie Izzard Cake or Death Church of England sketch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like that mix of the really naive and happy and like a strange dark undercurrent.
Yeah.
And the god of death in Pathfinder is true neutral, because death comes to everyone and death doesn't care.
Yeah.
But you can worship the god and be in alignment, step out. So she was a neutral good devotee of death that was more about the birthing and the midwifery and helping people die with dignity.
It's death and childbirth.
Yeah, it's the cycle.
Yeah.
But she was raised by neutral evil, horrible cultists of death, but just didn't realise. Because I thought that was quite a cool little background for her. So essentially, she got sent off on a quest where they didn't want her to ever come back, but they were forbidden from killing their own.
Yeah.
And they presented a cheerful face, and then had dark things going on and sort of layers within the cult. So I'd talked with the DM and built up this cult that hid in plain sight.
Yeah.
Under the guise of the good side of the god of death, but she just did the good side and didn't realise. And then occasionally she'd like have a weird childhood memory and go, "Oh, that's why I didn't see those people again. They must have sacrificed them." Oh, and things like that. Yeah,
never mind.
Yeah,
and then it was a bizarre character.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that character.
I liked Mouse.
Yeah, Mouse was fun.
Yeah,
So with that background influenced the character, and the character influenced the background. It all kind of got muddled together, but it came out with a character I enjoyed playing. One thing you can do as well, because that comes from the world. I looked at the god of death and went, "Oh, you could worship that god happily or really evilly." That's quite interesting, and I like that contradiction. When you look at a setting, you can sort of take something from the setting as your spark. You can might see something in a world that you really like. So there might be a guild, and you go, "I'd really like to have been a member of that guild." So you make someone who's part of that guild or wants to be part of that guild.
Yeah.
Wants to be, I think, is better because it then gives you a goal, a motivation.
Yeah.
But you might be part of it, and that gives you allies and responsibility, which can also be good motivation for your character. One thing I like doing, and I think this comes from my own chaotic urges in real life, possibly because I don't get to vent them in day-to-day, is I like to pick something and have conflict with it.
Yeah.
So I have played all sorts of weird things because I've found something I don't like in the setting that I think should change, something that's unjust or unfair or unpleasant, and I've created a character that wants to change that wants to do something about that.
I remember enjoying Garrick, your warlock, who always had that "no, things should be different" type attitude.
Yes, because he was different and was picked on for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. because he was possessed by a demon, and people don't tend to like that. So he decided that everything should change so that people like him could be accepted. But I played him as being awkward to the point of being predictable.
Yeah.
Because he didn't trust anyone. He had no one that he trusted in his entire life, and he had a really miserable backstory.
Yeah.
So he would always go against things, and the DM running did some quite skillful stuff where they would try to pressure me into doing something knowing I'd do the opposite. Because that's what the character would do. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing what I'm told. Stop telling me what to do. And they go, haha, I knew you do that. And then I was in a whole mess of, oh, God. So that was quite good. But, yeah, I remember in that we took a prisoner, and Garrick's there going, that person tried to kill us. It was a character, someone that your character had fought a duel with, wasn't it?
It was Cassius.
Yeah,
I
liked Cassius. Cassius was fun as well.
Yeah.
Because he was lawful. He had a code.
Yes, he was part of the Legion.
And I was chaotic neutral, and you were lawful neutral. But we got on quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite good.
Because your chaotic neutral side. And then, again, this is where we have that grey area more with the lawful and the chaotic. My lawful was to the Legion's code of practice, code of honour, not to the laws of the land, which your chaotic side was related to.
Yeah, you didn't care about the laws of the land. You were about your personal honour and your personal standing within your community.
I remember many times going, well, you can go off and do that, but I'm not helping you.
Yeah.
If you come back, awesome, we'll still be friends, but I'm not doing that because of my reasons.
Yeah.
And the little interactions like that. I'm going to go sneak in. Well, no, I'm not sneaking in.
Yeah. But I remember,
give me a shout and I'll run through the door and stab things. But it was that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we had a good cleric with us.
Yes.
Who was essentially Patrick Stewart in a robe. It was like Captain Picard meets Professor Xavier.
Yeah.
Yeah. This character, I was like, we need to kill. This guy was like a evil cultist, and I was like, that he's just going to go and kill more people. He's incredibly powerful. He has a breastplate with a demon eye coming out of it that like helps him, and he's just horrible. He's nasty. We were like tying him up, and I may have punched him a few times, and he was like laughing and also
you basically
a crazy character.
Demon lightning out of your arm, didn't you?
Yeah,
just like shut up.
Had the uncontrollable arm of unstoppable power. That sometimes would carry on when I didn't want it to.
Yeah,
but again, skillful thing with the DM was sort of using the fact the character was possessed to make things interesting. And I was like, kill him, and the good cleric said, well, if you kill him, you merely glorify his god, the god of suffering and pain and death. If we let him go, then he's lost. And I was like, shit, you're right, but I don't like that because now I want to piss. Would I piss him off more? So we let him go.
And I think this is quite a good. I still to this day cannot decide whether this was a good example of DM bullshit or a bad example of it.
Okay.
Because I still don't quite know how I feel about it as a player.
Yeah.
Is that after winning, because that duel happened, and I seem to remember it going really badly in my favour when it probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because it was designed that he was quite a powerful thing, and the way I'd built the character just seemed to go, nah, I win.
Yeah.
In a couple of sessions' time, I ended up getting called out for another duel.
Yeah.
With a character the DM had built that just went, I counter every single thing you can do.
Yeah.
No. Like, well, my character would trip people up.
Yeah.
And then every time they tried to get up, go, nope, down the floor, nope, down the floor, nope, down the floor, while people zapped him, basically.
Yeah. You used the sword, and then he was really good at disarming people.
It was
and two weapons. Good fight with two weapons. So he nicked your sword and hit you with
basically
it.
When so the DM had built a character specifically to go, haha, fuck you.
Yeah.
And there's part of me that always felt that was slightly because I'd fucked up the guy that he really liked as one of his characters.
But it's interesting because it gives your character is all about the pride and the honour.
Yeah. It gives them
That's
a proper
interesting
nemesis.
to play, But at some point, that character needs to come up against something that challenges that.
Yeah.
There's no point me playing, I'm really rebellious, I hate slavery. Let's move to the part of the world where there is no slavery and open a bakery.
Yeah.
Where's the conflict?
Yeah.
Stories thrive on conflict, which is why I like to pick something in conflict with the world.
Yeah. And it was... Then this is what I mean. There's part of me that I think... Potentially, if you do something like that for what you think is a very good story reason, make sure your players understand, because they might just think you're being a dick.
Yeah.
And this, like I said, you're not competing.
Yeah, your DM isn't competing.
That very much felt like a competition at that point of going, how I've made something that can beat you.
The thing is, the DM can always just drop in something completely indestructible because he knows your character. And I've seen that done. I've had half a party killed, and then the rest of us just sort of much beaten to sleep and then robbed and walked off because the DMs pitched things way too far.
Yeah.
The players that died were pissed off.
Because, interestingly enough, we've had a pre-written campaign do that and throw something that's far beyond our level at us that's supposed to scare the shit out of us, and then we murdered it.
That was part
Rise of the Rune Lords again.
Yeah,
where the avatar of a god appears, and we went, oh, that's big. Right, let's fuck it up. And it was...
I can't trip this.
It uses a challenge rating system in this game. So if you're all level 7... You should be able to and be good at fighting things that are challenge rating 7.
Yeah.
We were level 9 and this thing was challenge rating 16 or something ridiculous.
Which should be, if you're fully prepared and you know you're fighting it,
should still be a very, very, very...
half the party should die.
Yep.
Pretty much. It's balanced that way because it's a very mathematical system.
Yes.
It is based on crunching numbers and such like.
We beat the shit out of that.
Yes, we did.
That was interesting.
So just to recap that then, looking at the background and either integrating or conflicting with that. Is there anything to add, Aaron?
No. I think it's pretty good.
We just talked, we just reminisced a lot.
That's fine.
So we've got some different approaches there where you've got taking things that you like from films, books, TV, games, replicating that, giving it a twist, combining one or two together, using your background to help embed your character in the world, give it things from the DM's point of view they can use, or to use those experiences to motivate or affect your character's personality, or looking at things maybe from a rules perspective, what we've looked at so far.
Yeah, and also, it's bizarre how much of a really important point this is. Try and avoid too much conflict in your own party. Party is the term used to describe your group of players.
Yes.
Because you just don't want, like, it could have been quite easy for the Garrick Cassius example.
Yeah.
If that was, rather than chaos and law, if that was good and evil, one of us would have murdered the other one.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens, you know.
One thing I did like was when we played Rise of the Rune Lords, Colin joined in quite late. We found his elven ranger in a stew pot that some ogres were cooking and pushed him out.
I think he was upside down in an empty pot at this point.
Oh, they're about to cook it. Basically.
It was quite fun.
So we rescued him, and he was there for a reason that tied in with us, so it got him in with the group. And he was basically playing a self-serving sort of bastard character.
He was
a bounty hunter.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And then by the end of that campaign, because the rest of us were all good, his alignment had shifted because he played the character as being sort of inspired by seeing us being better people and started wanting to fit in and be like us. The character didn't really have many friends because he was a self-serving lone wolf.
Yeah.
And actually liked the company, he decided, and the character had changed. And that's something that I quite like, is when a character is different at the end of the story than they are at the beginning.
Yeah. He ended up being given divine gifts by one of the good gods, didn't he?
Yes, which was quite nice.
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't where you expected the character to go.
No.
And being able to sort of surprise and twist your character in that sort of way.
Well, I almost see if things go badly and some of us get murdered by Watchers in GenLab, I can see Murakami taking a much more aggressive stance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And end up being almost this crazy berserker.
Well, if he keeps failing the little people, he's going to push the little people away.
It doesn't necessarily even have to do that. I mean, it could break Murakami depending on what happens.
Yeah.
You know, being angry occasionally seems to have gotten these little things killed and completely rescind on.
So he could completely go the other way. Yeah. If he causes the fight, if he causes a fight that gets someone else killed, he could go completely the other way. Yeah.
Whereas if we don't start a fight that starts, and the person, the smallest one, gets murdered.
Yeah.
You might find rather than being this, maybe we should be a little bit more thoughtful or not murder the thing. It might just be like, no, fuck it, every single one we kill, I'm going to headbutt it into the floor.
And if you're playing a very, very crunchy game of dungeon delving and such, like maybe some of this personality stuff isn't necessarily the great thing, but you might think of an archetype that lets you throw out some great one-liners when you decapitate the bad guy or thing. You can still use some of it for fun, but because you're telling a story together, if you can make an interesting character, you're not only entertaining yourself, you're entertaining the other people round the table, the other players and the DM. So, taking a little bit of time to think about this, I think, is worthwhile.
Oh, definitely. And that leads on perfectly to what I was going to say, in that taking a bit of time to think about something, very important, more so in systems that require it, which sounds odd. You look at something like Dungeons & Dragons, there are lots of prerequisites for different things to happen.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to look into your character's future and see where you want to go.
If you're starting at level 1 but you want to become an assassin needs to take a certain set of feats by a certain level to be able to get into it effectively.
You need certain ranks in certain skills, and so if you want to be efficient because you're playing a crunchy numbers murder stuff game, plan ahead.
Yeah, so even we're planning ahead for story purposes, maybe with personality and background. Plan ahead from a rules perspective.
Both if it fits. It's very silly to not plan ahead for the story, because you can, like you said, you can get it into any campaign.
Yeah.
But you might need to plan ahead, and it might be something that your DM need to help you with.
Yeah.
Depending on how familiar you are with the system. Like, I know if we went, we've got this horror campaign for Pathfinder, we're going to play that, and we're all starting at level 1. I'd be quite happy going, by level 10 I want to have these things.
Yeah.
So I need to take this at this level, otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You, Aaron, who's not playing, you would go,
I have no idea.
I could make a level 1 character.
Yes.
And I know what I want to be at level 10. But the getting there would be quite difficult. Yeah. So one of us would sit with you and go,
you need to do this.
Yeah, or you need to have your attributes in this thing, and you need to do that, and you need to do this. And so,
again, that's discussion.
Something to talk about with your DM.
Yeah.
Because games like Mutant, just pick and choose what you want as and when you want it. Games like D&D, you really need to plan in advance, because it's the way the system works.
Yeah. I think it's nice to be able to know why your character is there.
Yeah.
What is my motivation in this scene? Although sort of like a theatrical cliche.
Yeah, it does work.
Yeah, if you're playing a character, just knowing why. I know why Murakami, for instance, is doing what he's doing. I knew why Garrick was doing what he was doing. He might end up out of his depth and completely lost, but there was still something there. It's like, I need to get back to this. I need to live for this reason. I like this character. I dislike that person.
Yeah.
If the party was in desperate peril and I could only save one, I know exactly which all of my characters would pick. It would be a hard choice, but if I was pushed to that point, I know that Garrick would have saved Cassius and Murakami would save
Suarez.
Niner.
Yeah, it's not. Niner or Suarez.
Because you got two names, so my brain went, one of them must be wrong. And he would save Niner because of the interactions that they had. And that just comes back to the thing of not necessarily getting too fixed on, this is my character and it's playing exactly this way for the next year of roleplay time. If you think of good stories, characters change throughout them.
Yeah.
Yes. Enemies become friends, friends become enemies. I mentioned Daredevil earlier because I've been watching Daredevil fairly recently. he's not the same character at the end of the second series as he is at the beginning of the first.
Yeah.
There's been lots of stuff that's happened that's changed his outlook, made him push friends away and acting in a different way. You take Lord of the Rings we've mentioned.
Yeah.
Was that what you were going to mention?
No, I was going to say, where we said earlier about pick a character, like I picked Cain.
Yeah.
Now, there are 4 books about Cain. I could have picked start of book 1 Cain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Midway through book 3 Cain. And then if you're doing stuff like that and you are basing it on something else, think, well, why are they now like they are? What impacted their personality? What changed them? You go, well, there was this horrible thing that happened. I might not pick the same horrible thing as that's happened in the media that I've got it from.
Yeah.
Because if we use the Daredevil example, letting that killer back out onto the streets might have really angered him.
Yeah.
If I'm playing a bloke in like Dungeons and Dragons land, I'm not a lawyer, so maybe if I was a bounty hunter, not getting that person or
you
not being able
give
to
them over to the person, and then they just go, okay, cool, we'll just set them free again straight away. It's just what to talk to him.
Yeah, there could be some you can use bits of their past and twist them to fit your past, and
but
all kinds of things
also
like that.
Was Cain exactly the same as the character in the book by the end of your time playing him?
He had similarities.
Yeah, because the core is the same.
That's like God complex that he developed from being
Yeah.
amazing and having the most broken power.
But if stuff hadn't happened like that in the game, Cain perhaps wouldn't have developed.
Nah, this is it. Exactly. So, interestingly enough, character Cain as opposed to book Cain became far more detached.
Yeah.
And far more apathetic to other people's plights, because every time he tried and help, someone else fucked it up.
Yeah.
So he stopped caring.
Yeah.
And was getting progressively weaker, which was actually strangely similar to the books. But yeah, so it's weird, like you say, certain bits worked out and then other bits completely changed. And this is the thing, even if you completely copied a character, by the end of a couple of sessions, you might end up with a character that's quite far removed.
Yeah.
Purely because of your interactions with other people. And you might go, oh, fucking hell, that's a genius idea. My character never thought of it that way. I'm going to listen to you more.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, allowing the events of... Because you've built a story before that has shaped your character, allowing the events of the campaign to shape your character is very, very... It can be really, really...
Fulfilling,
satisfying. Yeah. You think of, say, Frodo's journey and how he's sort of cynical and sort of hard-bitten by the end of it. He's not the same person.
No,
but you can see exactly why
he's
the person that he is. And sometimes you can really sort of surprise yourself with what you end up doing.
Yeah.
For instance, my Gentle Giant character always tries to talk things through. The only thing I thought was we were camping out in someone's in another animal's den.
It appeared to be an abandoned hut twice, didn't it?
Yeah. And this rat came in. Now one of our party is a member of rat tribes. She's a squirrel because that's how they work. It's sort of a grouping of similar animals rather than specifically just rats. So the guy started picking on her and being really horrible to her. Now she was the only reason we'd managed to survive up until this point, and she is quite small. And Murakami's naturally protective of the smaller things, so he kind of intervened and said, stop being horrible to my friend, and he carried on and then used his dominate to basically
put you in your place,
put me in my place. And Murakami's reaction is either, when that happens, is to yield as an animal would, almost like roll over, show your belly, you've beaten me up, you're stronger, please don't kill me, or to fight for their life, fight or flight essentially. And without even thinking, I was like, I'm going to headbutt him, he's threatening my friend. And I was like, I didn't actually... It just came out my mouth. And I was like, but actually it makes perfect sense. That was the first time I'd struck another animal. I'd been mugged on my own and just gave in.
Yeah.
Because, the character doesn't want that conflict. But it's not about him, it's about someone smaller than him that he wants to protect.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was really surprised. And then I headbutted the guy. He fell on the floor, wet himself. We realised he was a tramp, so I knelt down and apologised very much and tried to bring him round. Yeah, it was so that surprised me, but it was within the characters.
Yeah, it was also a very interesting moment of character development.
Yeah, what do you do in this situation?
To kind of realise that you have that potential within yourself to cause another animal harm.
If you had to pick a character, not one of your own, but one that you've played with, that you have enjoyed playing with the most.
God, his character's name's gone from my head. But the gearhead from the Mutant campaign, who essentially became a communist towards the end of it.
Yeah, but like a violent Stalinist communist.
Yeah, well, no, he started off as like an actual like idealistic communist, and then people wouldn't listen to him, and then got killed, and he kind of snapped and went, "You're all stupid. The only way you're all going to survive is if I tell you all what to do and make sure I've got your best interests at heart." So yeah, became Stalinist communist. And I quite like that development we crafted through that, and the snapping was quite fun. It's kind of do mad breaking quite well.
He does.
Yeah.
I've very much enjoyed. I'd probably say I can narrow it down to two.
Yeah.
Which are two of that we've mentioned, which are probably Mouse and Garrick.
Yeah, I win.
Because Mouse was mad. Convinced that just a screw loose.
See, I never got to witness too much of that. I heard all the stories.
Yeah.
But I wasn't.
She was mental.
But in a fun way.
Yeah. But mad.
Just trying to think what the maddest thing I did was.
I've memories of you polymorphing yourself into a unicorn.
That's exactly what I thought.
To get through the magic barrier that turned you into a fish.
Yeah, it's a magic barrier. If you went through it, it would turn you into a fish and put you in a bowl, and then someone had to unpolymorph you, and
you ended up in this little pond, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because we found other fish that were in the pond and took one as a pet because it talked to us.
Because it showed up as being good. Yeah. Therefore, we assumed it was a person. And then we unpolymorphed it, and it was like a 4,000-year-old dwarf who'd been a fish for 4,000 years, and just very occasionally would stand there not really paying attention with his mouth going. But then he died horribly. Bless him. We kicked him out with some treasure. It was quite good. And I made a bargain with whatever was controlling the door that I got to be a unicorn.
Yeah.
And then galloped around and refused to turn back.
No. It wasn't with whatever. You made a bargain with Rob that you would only let him polymorph you if he turned you into a unicorn.
Because Rob's character was turning. Because if we were already polymorphed, we just went through.
Yeah. And Garrick, just because of a lot of just the interesting conversations and differences of opinion that he had with Cassia, so it was just quite a fun character. Considering they were friends, to have very different opinions on certain topics and to be just like, oh, for God's sake, but still knowing they had each other, very much like me and Brian are in real life. It was just, that was a very good roleplay experience. Although I will put an honourable mention to a friend's character who, when not given anything to do, would sit on rocks and whittle. Yeah. What are you going to do? I'm going to sit here, get out a small piece of wood and whittle. Like, what are you doing that? I took it as a skill.
He just had like a single point in whittling and would just like carve a figurine every now and then. Yeah. Was that the same character that had the comb?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't play with this character. This was a character I had to put up with as a DM. They found a jewel-encrusted comb as a piece of treasure. Because rather than saying, you find
some gems.
You find X thousand gold pieces of sellable goods that weigh this much. It's a bit dull. Try to give some kind of thing.
Became his favourite thing.
Yeah, so he kept it. And it would be like, what are you going to do? And if he couldn't whittle, he'd pull out his comb and comb his hair and like really show off.
It's like a greaser.
Yeah, like they'd meet a noble family, so he tried to impress them by combing his hair with his really expensive comb.
Well, like covered in mud.
Yeah, blood and other people's effluence.
That was entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get to play with characters too much because I tend to run the game.
Yeah.
But there's loads that stand out, all for sort of different reasons. I really enjoyed. We played a 24-hour game, and I played that game with Colin again. And Colin's slightly crazy in real life, so his characters tend to have something very strong about them. He makes a really strong hook for the character.
Is this his fighting bard, by any chance?
No, it was his. That's the paladin bard that you're thinking of. That died all the time because it had 6 hit points. Yeah, at like level 50. He played a devotee of the god of war. I played the noble daughter of this settlement that was invaded and taken over. It's like a hostile takeover. They annexed our village, and I'm stood there, and we've all been herded into the village square, basically to be told by the orcs that if we did as we were told, they wouldn't kill us. And I look up at him and I go, he's this giant guy in plate mail with a giant sort of buster sword kind of thing. And I'm like, don't start anything. Don't get my people killed. And he just sort of turns around to me and goes, but why? I outnumber them 1 to 20. And I'm like, no, they outnumber you 20 to 1. He goes, I could take them. And I'm like, no, you'll get everyone else killed. He goes, yes, but imagine the glory if I won. And of course, if I lost, I'll have died facing massive odds. I'll still be a hero. And he starts towards them, and my character's like, no, stop it. And he's just like, let's play this absolute, like, the character, again, it had that strong hook.
Yeah.
It wanted to fight the biggest fight, challenge the biggest enemy, die gloriously, or get covered in glory for winning.
Yeah.
And so just had a massive death wish, and it was completely counter to what my character was doing, but we sort of balanced out really well. And it was that was really fun. But there's just been loads of great characters that people have really sort of put some time and effort into throughout. We've talked about quite a lot of them. But yeah, there've been lots of great characters. We talked about them a lot because hopefully by sort of hearing examples, we might bore you to death. People telling their role play stories,
hopefully inspire something.
And it's as we said right back at the beginning, it can be intimidating. Make up a person and go and be that person. But we've met people, steal bits of those people, use them, or put yourself in that position and think, how would I be? What would I do if, in 40 years' time, if mega corporations ruled the world more openly than they do now? If magic was real, what would I think about that? Would I be afraid of it, or would I want it?
Yeah.
That's an interesting point as well. If because we said earlier about picking a start point.
Yeah.
Pick a class, pick a particular skill you like, pick something, and then ask yourself questions. Like you said, so I want to be a fighter. Something breaks in and I want to kill it. What do I hit it with? I'll probably use it. I'd quite like having an axe. Okay, cool. If they try to hit you, what stops the blow? Is it your armour? Do you have a shield? Do you dodge out the way nimbly? And you can start to build this kind. Someone threatens you. How do you react? And you can build yourself a character by just imagining little scenarios and go, what would they do? And you slowly build up this picture. I want to play the investigator. Okay, but I get caught while looking at breaking in someone's house, looking at a thing. Do I fight them? Do I run away? Do I hide?
Do I charm my way out of it?
Yeah, and you can build a character like that.
That's a great method that we should have mentioned an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, but it's a pro tip for those that are still listening. So well done, you.
Yeah.
Buy yourself a biscuit.
So that's great. I think, as we said, in the next one in our series, we'll look at maybe DMing. And hopefully we can get another DM. Because you guys, I don't know if you've ever run anything, Joe. You haven't run anything that I've played.
Not successfully.
But that'll be interesting to pick your brain on that and maybe talk about what didn't work. Whereas, Aaron, I know you've not run anything before, but that'd be quite good because, we can look at why that is and what you'd want to know before you'd feel happy doing that. So that'd be quite good. So that would be sort of our next episode of this little mini series, probably in about a month's time. Events in the real world permitting. Depending on what else we cover between now and then. Anything to add?
No, I think that's been a fairly good thing. Obviously, like you said at the beginning, ask questions. If you want some more information on something, or
definitely.
So if you've got any tips for sort of developing compelling characters, we haven't even talked about non-player characters from a DM's perspective. A lot of these lessons cross over, so we'll talk about them more specifically next time.
But if you think we've got anything horribly wrong as well, and you've had things different in your experience, you think something
we've
you've
tried
said
something we've done and that just hasn't worked for them at all,
then do let us know. We can either tell you where you're going wrong or agree with you.
And please feel free to share in the comments your stories of your characters.
Please do.
Because we love hearing that sort of thing.
And I find it, because as we've mentioned quite a bit, that roleplay works differently for different groups and different people. I've got 17 years of roleplay experience, but it's probably only with about 30 people.
Whereas mine, we said, 11, 12 years? And you're probably talking 10 people?
So it'd be really interesting to hear from you how things work for you in your games, etc., etc. It'd be really interesting to sort of to share that. Thank you for listening. If you do like this and you think maybe people you know would get something out of it, please feel free to share it. It makes me happy when that happens.
Share it to your entire roleplay group.
Yes,
everyone should listen.
Hold them down and blast it into their ears like they were Guantanamo Bay prisoners. Too political?
Great ending.
But please do get in touch. I'd really like to hear what how other people play these games and what they think of the way we do it. Thank you for listening. We've been the Critical Twits. I've been Brian.
I've been Aaron.
And I've been Joe.
And until next time, thanks again. Bye. I waved again every week.
Bye.
Who's that guy? Mr. B. Bye.